أهلا وسهلا. Hoş geldiniz.
Bienvenidos.
Selamat datang.
Welcome to Speaking Our Mind podcast, where health is more than healthcare.
Hello, welcome to Speaking Our Minds podcast, where health is more than healthcare. This is a podcast provided by the Nashua Division of Public Health and Community Services. I'm Savitri Horrigan, behavioral health strategist with the Division of Public Health and Community Services, and I'm here today with Sheelu Joshi Flegal. Welcome, Sheelu.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I'm sorry, are you Dr. Sheelu?
Not a doctor.
I just wanted to make sure I recognize you.
I am a
master's level clinician, LICSW.
Correct.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I did my undergraduate studies at UNH and then got my master's degree at Boston University way back in the day, and then became a licensed clinical social worker. So I've worked in a couple of different places using my social work degree.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm so happy to talk to you today. I'm really looking forward to our topics. Today, we're going to talk about youth mental health, Sheelu's experience with school social work, and then also talking about stigma faced by South Asian communities. So could you tell us about your work as a school social worker and some of the issues that youth are facing today?
Sure. I'm just going to roll it back a little bit more. Actually, I started my career in Nashua.
Wow.
Yes, I worked at the Nashua Children's Home for 22 years.
Awesome.
And was the residential director there. So saw a lot of different things, experienced a lot of different types of mental health issues, systemic issues with abuse and neglect and things like that. And then had the opportunity to go work in a school, which I felt probably wasn't going to be my thing because I was used to being in Nashua and experiencing a little bit more diversity within the community here. But I work now at Souhegan High School. And one of the things that I say to people all the time since I went there is mental health does not discriminate. And there are a lot of issues that are plaguing our youth now and in all of our communities. And so I've really made it my mission over there to be able to reduce stigma and work with kids around being better equipped to deal with their mental health.
Wow, that's amazing. It's so exciting to hear about how you've taken your work in Nashua and used it with your work to apply towards your work in Milford. Amherst, sorry. Mm-hmm. So are you from Nashua?
Yes, sort of. So I was born in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and then I moved to Nashua when I was in high school. So yes, most of my life here in New Hampshire, but I still consider myself cheesehead through and through.
I love that. That's awesome. Cool. You're also to hear about both your work in the school system and at the Nashua home.
Sure.
And observed in that work.
Yeah, just to add another thing, because I'm a social worker, I do too many things. I have a small private practice located in Amherst. So I see children, adults, parents provide parenting support, and I am trying to branch into the South Asian community. I think that's
amazing.
There are not a lot of culturally aware, culturally competent South Asian therapists. And so I'm hoping to be able to touch some of those folks, having grown up in a very white community in Green Bay. And then when I moved to Nashua, also not very diverse in the mid 80s, really found myself trying to figure out who I was. South Asian community has very strong values and they impart those onto their children. And I appreciate that and love that and embrace all of that for myself. But also I was like, what are my friends doing? I think that our adolescents currently still have that struggle. That can lead to a lot of mental health kind of struggles. It can lead to not knowing how to fight for their own independence, yet maintain their connection to their communities. That's a big piece to think about when I think about working with young people. That is the bottom line for all young people developmentally. They're trying to move into independence. But then if you add a layer of another culture on top of it, it complicates it.
Yeah, that reminds me of like Erickson's models of, moving through stages, which is not always linear too.
Right.
Yeah. The element, can you talk more about what kind of like element you're talking about when someone through that adolescent stages of independence and connection is salvaging and having those types of different challenges?
Sure. I think for all young people, they're trying to figure out who they are.
Yeah.
So looking to television, they're looking to music, they're looking to social media. I think a lot of people will say social media is terrible. It's terrible for kids. It's terrible for everybody. Much of anything is terrible.
Yeah.
I can say that I think that I have found that sometimes people in communities that are not fully seen, whether that be marginalized communities or communities like South Asians, living in a place where there isn't a lot of South Asian representation, can look to social media and be like, oh, I found Instagram that had something that relates to me.
Yeah.
Being able to find connection and community in that way. And also then being able to branch out and find friends. I think I rolled a couple of things in there together. I do want to talk a little bit about social media and teens, but that's what all teens are doing right now. They're looking for connection and looking to figure out who they are. So just trying to support some of that. I feel pretty strongly that sometimes the parents of not just South Asian kids, any kids, are trying to figure that out as well. They're like, but my baby is getting bigger and wanting to make their own decisions. So how do they balance allowing them to make mistakes? Our teenagers' brains are built for risk.
Yeah.
Terrible because you're like, please, this is going to make a bad decision.
Yeah.
But it's because they are built that way and their brain needs to learn how to make good decisions.
Right.
And so we need to provide some space for them to take risks, healthy risks, positive risks, things like that. Parents get really scared about that. I think that South Asian parents get even more scared about that. At least has been my experience growing up, but also I have a vast community, cousins, and my parents had a lot of brothers and sisters. So I have a lot of cousins, and cousins in the South Asian community are treated like brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
We talk a lot and they're having their kids and they're calling me and we do this. And so it really comes down to how do you preserve the identity you want for your children, but also allow them to build their own identity.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much about what you just said that resonates with me as a Indonesian American.
Mhm.
And a lot of my cousins have cousins on my mom's side in Indonesia and Australia and across the world. And also similarly, I love how you framed it as we need to build space for kids to take healthy risks so that they can figure out what those boundaries are in a way that sets them up for success in the future. So much of what you said resonates with me. Also growing up in a predominantly white town in Connecticut, growing up, I felt like I did get the opportunity to see my family in Indonesia every couple of years, but it was very much I had the sense of being almost like half a person. Half of me was not there. And I felt like for most of my teens, 20s, and early 30s, it was about trying to find that connection, the Indonesian community. And I'm really grateful for Indonesian community in New Hampshire on the seacoast. And like you said, that's powerful to be able to. And so it's like social media, it is a pro and a con. There's you go too far into certain things or spend all your time on there and don't get to connect other ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think post-pandemic, people don't like to talk about the pandemic anymore, but post-pandemic, I think a lot of young people struggle to figure out how to talk to people in person.
Yeah, me, honestly.
Yeah.
Definitely changed how I was like, I don't know how to relate to people now.
Sure. And so, like, I don't want to talk to that person. It's awkward. I'll text them. And I'm like, just look at somebody. We're really trying, as a school social worker, actually, I'm trying to encourage young people to actually have conversations with one another. I have lots of feelings about the phone ban. We won't get into that. Could be a whole other podcast. But thing that I will say about that is it has forced young people in schools to talk to each other. Years past, when kids had their phones, we were pretty lenient at Sauhegan. Really just believe we have to give kids enough space to make good decisions. So we would just okay, here's your phone. I would see kids waiting to go into class and whether they were feeling awkward because they didn't want to talk to somebody, or they were wanting to return their 1,000 snaps that they got in between classes or whatever, kids had their heads in their phones.
Yeah.
And so they weren't looking at one another, talking to each other, saying hello to the person who's standing next to them. I've talked to a lot of students this year who've had a lot of feelings again about whether they can have their phone or not. And for the most part, kids are like, it's kind of wild. We have things in common with people in our classes. And I didn't even know it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
This is great. Would love to hear your thoughts on kind of pros and cons of that. But it reminds me of up without a phone in school. I think I had a flip phone. I didn't have a smartphone, which I do think makes a difference because connected all the time, or having the ability to connect all the time, a global world, definitely I find as an adult, I tend to use my phone a lot when I am feeling anxious and I just want to the overwhelm and just keep my eyes down and not interact with people. And it's making me think about what is that like as a young person who may be feeling anxiety and how are they navigating that and coping with that?
Yeah, it 100% is connected. A lot of research out there can point you to in 100 directions around introduction of phones, social media, things like that to young people and the spike in anxiety and depression. What you said about being on all the time, I think that has been for me the number one thing around how do you manage that feeling that you have inside of you. People manage it better than others and they make space for that and put down their phone or put on, their notifications. But kids have a really hard time with that. Have the FOMO, and they said if that person was communicating with these people or they snapped that person, if I didn't answer, they're going to be mad at me or they're going to. So I've done some work with kids around talk about this. If you sent somebody a message on whatever platform and they don't answer you right away, what does that mean? Immediately, kids are they don't like me. They're blowing me off. Did something to make them upset with me. They don't want to be my friend anymore.
Which is building a narrative in their mind that people don't like them or they're not deserving of friendship. So
I try to subtly introduce, what if they were taking a test in class? What if the teacher took their phone away because they were on their phone when they weren't supposed to? What if their parents said, I need you to put your phone away for 3 hours tonight because I've seen you on your phone too much. And it really had nothing to do with you. They're like, whoa. And sometimes that's hard for them to even imagine that it couldn't be something that they did or something about them. I think that is part of that kind of anxious generation of young people that we're living with. So it's important, I think, to talk about that, to bring that up to the front for everybody and be able to have open conversations. So kind of back around some of the things we talked about around stigma, about mental wellness, talking about how you can impart strategies into your own life to say, I'm setting a boundary for myself because I want to feel better. I think about kids who go to sleep with their phones next to their heads at night, getting up in the middle of the night and they're answering snaps and texts and Instagrams and sending reels. And if I could tell you the amount that I've learned about subtext in Instagram reels, I just don't even. It's wild. It's a whole nother language, but people read into everything. And that too is influencing our young people. Well, why did that person like that reel that had to do with somebody who had a friend who did XYZ? They're talking about me. Really trying hard to uncouple all of that stuff with young people and say, sometimes it's not about you. Sometimes it's about something totally different. Or maybe how do you let that go? How do you say, fine, believe what you want to believe about me, but I don't believe that about me. Creating that kind of conversation for students, young people, is really important. We have to give people the tools to do that.
Yeah, huge. I think that's wonderful that you have those conversations with students, because I can only imagine too, if that's the narrative that's up in my mind, that would lead me to feel so much worse about myself. Yeah.
Other thing I think when we talk about tools is parents with that type of information. So some people will say, okay, we're a therapist, so you know about these things and you learn about these things. I think it's important to talk with parents, be very open with parents, have them come in and learn from people who are working with kids all the time. When I think about like media or how to have hard conversations with your own kids, you have to learn about it. So I tell all parents, get a Snap, get an Instagram. Nobody's on Facebook anymore. Do the things that your kids are doing so that when they come to you because they're confused or they're upset or they don't know how to handle something, they're not having to explain to you what it is.
Mm-hmm.
They can talk about the feeling because you're like, oh, I know what an Instagram reel is. So at least you have come to a certain point together with the person, your trusted adult, and then the child feels more comfortable going to that person. Similarly, for any type of mental health worry, concern, a lot of people are really afraid to talk about things, particularly really hard things like self-harm and suicide. The numbers are astronomical in terms of young people and their feelings around that. And so we want to equip the trusted adults, the person that you want the kids to go to, which is their parents and guardians, with the information and the know-how to be able to ask questions and say, I'm here for you and I can provide you support.
Absolutely. I think that's really good advice, especially with the becoming familiar with what are the communication tools your kid is using so that you can focus on the feelings, like you said. I'm curious if you could speak a little bit more about stigma and how you see that impacting people's access to mental health.
I think stigma has always been connected to mental health. I think it's really important to flatten the leveling between physical health and mental health. If we could think about mental health the way we think about physical health. I tell young people all the time, if you had high blood pressure, you would go to your doctor. Your doctor might prescribe you some medication. They might also say you need to make some changes to your lifestyle. And you'd be like, no problem. You tell your family, you tell your friends, oh, I got high blood pressure. I got to do this. You go to the doctor and your doctor says, you just did this survey for me. And I think that you might have depression. And I think maybe we should do some lifestyle changes and maybe prescribe you some medication. That person will go home and be like, oh, I don't want to tell anybody, but I have depression. Well, what's the difference?
Yeah, right.
And again, it goes back to maybe you didn't do anything. Maybe biologically you got the jackpot of genes and you might have some things going on for you. Family members may have anxiety or depression or some other mental health diagnosis, and that also gets carried. And so how do you do that? So opening up that line of communication with all providers and saying, let's make this not a problem to talk about.
Absolutely. I think that's such a wonderful way of thinking about it. I think about how even as myself, as a social worker, as someone who's always known about the value of therapy and mental health support, it even took me like many years into my late 20s, early 30s to really feel comfortable reaching out to a therapist. And I think a large part of it was like, well, I don't really have it that bad. I don't think it's that big of an issue. It's not really impacting my life except for with my sleep and my anxiety and the pit in my stomach. A lot of minimizing.
I think people they compare. They compare and say, well, my life isn't as bad as that person's life, so I guess I shouldn't really worry about that. But if it is impacting you in some way, by all means, you don't have to be in therapy for years and years and years. There is something called brief therapy. You can also find a therapist who you say, I have 3 things that I really want to work on. Let's really dig into this and do it. That I do that kind of work with adults all the time. And it's great because you feel a sense of walking out of there with some things on your plate. I can do this. I'm going to try this. And then next week or in 2 weeks when I go back, let's see how it worked. And did it help me?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even just knowing about the different types of therapy, like you said, is really important because people may not know. I didn't know. That was just like one kind.
No, not one kind fits all, and not one therapist fits all. I talk about therapy, going to therapy and meeting your therapist is lying on a new pair of shoes. I like to at least use these kinds of things. The first time you wear your shoes, they might be a little uncomfy. You might be like, I'm sore after, or whatever. The second time you're like, oh, maybe. If by the third time your shoes still hurt, might not be the right pair of shoes, right? I feel that way about therapy. Go give it a try. Might feel real awkward to talk to somebody, but after you loosen up a little bit, establish a good talking space with that person. By the third time, if you feel like, I don't know if I can trust this person, then maybe it's time to look for somebody else. Totally fine.
I love that analogy. It's so good.
Thank you.
Well, Sheelu, it's been a pleasure talking with you today. Is there anything else you want to say before we hop off? And also if people wanted to learn more information about the things you've shared or get in touch with you?
No, I appreciate the platform to be able to talk about things. Like I said, my private practice is in Amherst. You can look me up, Sheelu Joshi Flegal. It's under Summit Counseling. It's across from Frederick's Pastry, so you can go get a cupcake after you see me.
Wonderful.
Also, there are tons of wonderful mental health resources. May is also Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes.
So hop online, find any of those resources in New Hampshire, NAMI, Communicate, Youth Well. They're all really wonderful places to get information.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sheelu.
Thank you.
And this has been Speaking Our Minds podcast, where health is more than healthcare. Thank you very much and see you next time.
أهلا وسهلا. Hoş geldiniz.
Bienvenidos.
Selamat datang.
Welcome to Speaking Our Mind podcast, where health is more than healthcare.